Oscillator Sync here. Getting on for about 2 years ago, I made a video on this, the Crow's Electromusic Ovum. It's an oscillator bank with 5 analog oscillators and volume controls for each of them, and it's designed for drones and tones, and I like it a fair bit, and I've used it a fair bit on recordings since getting it. Crows have just released the Ovum for Eurorack, which includes a bunch of general improvements and, of course, some stuff that is more sort of geared towards the Eurorack environment. We'll take a look at what these new features are, but when I did my original video on the Ovum, I had kind of a wish list of suggestions that I would have liked to have seen, maybe not in this version of the Ovum, given its sort of very affordable price point, but maybe like an Ovum Pro version, if you like. And some of those things are addressed here. So, for example, we now have a variable wave shape control rather than the hard switch, and the slightly less interesting tone basic filter arrangement that we had on the original Ovum. So that's very, very welcome to see. Now, does it address all of my wish list? Well, no. And again, it's a very affordable unit, so probably unrealistic to expect it to. However, it's in Eurorack now, so I can build the Ovum Pro of my dreams and see how that might operate and what you might have to add to this, and therefore to the price to achieve that. So that's what I am going to take a look at for most of this video. We'll have a quick overview of what Ovum is, what the new features are, but then we're going to build my Ovum Pro in my rack and then add loads of reverb and delay and stuff, obviously. Hello, Oscillator Sync here from the future in the edit bay, as it were. I forgot to mention in the introduction that Crow's Electromusic kindly sent over the Eurorack Ovum for me to take a look at. They didn't stipulate that they expected me to make a video, but it's probably implied somewhat. And I do get to keep the unit, so it's important for me to disclose that. I'll click the sponsored video button, and you would have seen that already probably. But yeah, important for me to let you know that, so proceed with that in mind. Back to the video. We'll start by just looking at the basic functionality of the Ovum Eurorack. If you've played with a desktop version, it's similar, but there are actually some differences which are worth taking a look at. So the main output for the module is this jack here, so I'll just plug that into my output mixer. So Ovum is made up of 5 oscillators, and the volume of those oscillators are controlled by these sliders. And we can blend together the different oscillators as we wish. So each oscillator basically has the same set of controls. The top control here is a pitch control, or to say frequency control, I guess. I have to say that these pots feel better than the ones on the original desktop version, at least the one I've got. They don't slip so much when you let go, which was something that was my only real criticism of the original version. So beneath that we have this other control here. So this blends between a triangle and a square. On the original Ovum, this was just a switch, and you had a kind of slightly boring sort of basic passive tone control. Much prefer this. This is also how it works on Crow's Law instrument as well. So that's great. Beneath that we have this switch here. And what this does is it switches between what you've got now to the right, which is an audio rate oscillator, and to the left where you've got an LFO. So the ranges are kind of constrained on these. When you're in the LFO mode, you are just in LFO. And when you're in the audio rate, even if you go down to the bottom, you're still just barely playing a note rather than pure clicks. Only just though. Some genuine heft to these oscillators down when they're tuned at the bottom as well, which is nice. And yeah, each of the oscillators share these basic controls, and then yes, the volume. So this is the main output, fair enough, and you're going to blend of all of the oscillators that are playing. However, above each of the other 4 oscillators you also have an output jack, and the nice thing about this output jack is when you plug in, it removes that one from the main output. So you can spread all 5 oscillators out to different locations if you want, or if you just want to, for example, have one oscillator acting as an LFO, you can take that out and leave the other 4 coming through the main output. So that's very smart. It's probably the most sensible way of doing it. You could argue that another way of doing it would to be sort of summing across them and then breaking the summing, a bit like Aikido does, but I think both are useful. So yeah, I go with this one. I've got other ways to mix stuff together if I need to mix 2 individual out, which we will be doing in a bit. So that's a basic overview of what we have here. As I mentioned, it doesn't add all of the things I wanted to add, so let's build Ovum Pro and see how that sounds as a drone instrument in the Eurorack environment. So let's start building out the wish list, and at the absolute top of the list was, on the original Ovum, the output is quite clean. The different oscillators are mixed together pretty much completely cleanly. There's no burn or saturation, and actually I think that's a shame, because when you have multiple droning oscillators, that kind of distortion and saturation and overdrive, that's where some of the real magical things happen. You start to get cancellation and reinforcement between the different frequencies, and that starts to create ghost notes. It starts to generate rhythms as the frequencies start to beat against each other, and yeah, that's something that I really wanted in the original one. So the way I'm going to do this initially is by using Aikido, because it overdrives really nicely, especially if you daisy chain a couple of the channels. So I'm going to go into channel 1 and then immediately out of channel 1 into channel 2, like so, and then we'll take channel 2's outputs into my mixer. So if we turn up these 2 sliders here, we should be able to quite quickly hear that sort of burn on the overdrive. And when we start to bring together multiple oscillators, just checking the levels. Isn't that glorious? So that's why I wanted distortion on the original, and you know, if we bring the volumes down, we still get that sort of cleaner unity mixing. It just happens quite a long way down on the sliders. The other thing that having this distortion allows us to do, especially on this new version, is we can take advantage of this LFO mode and use that as DC pushing into something that's already overdriving. So I've switched this one oscillator to LFO mode, and you can hear that it's creating pulsing rhythms, and the reason for that is that it's creating DC that's pushing the entire signal up against the clipping that's happening inside Aikido. Now, of course, you could use a separate LFO to do this and mix it in. But I really must suggest to people that you should be mixing LFOs into your signals when it's going through distortion. Fantastic. Okay, so we've got distortion happening here, which has immediately made this so much more exciting to me. So the next thing that I was really kind of missing from this was stereo. So now we have our individual outputs, we can start to play with that idea. So just bring those down and we'll do a bit of patching. So to get some stereo separation, I'm going to borrow two of the oscillators here and sum them together, which is easy for me to do in the palette case because we've just got some little summing mixers up on the top strip here. Bring those together. Take the output of that and bring it into Kedo. There we go, and then daisy chain 3 into 4 and take the output of 4 and bring it into the other half of the mixer. There we go. So we should now have on one side those, and then on the other side we should have these. We need to set up on a Kedo. The sort of stark separation, hard panning left and right does not spark joy. So rather than having these go directly into the mixer, let's take them via X-Pan, because we can then bring them into the center a little bit and of course modulate the panning too, which will be very nice, I think. So out of here into one of X-Pan's channels. Oops. And out of number one, out of here into the other of X-Pan's channels. And then we'll take the outputs of X-Pan and bring those into the mixer instead. Like that. We should now have control over those two. I think we want to get that moving around, so let's modulate those a little bit as well. Got some LFOs here. I won't run them directly in though, because they'll pan like hard too much. I want to attenuate them, only want them moving around a little bit. So we'll take these into the pan CV. It's just a bit of slow random movement there. That's still not enough though. I think we also should be filtering as well. I've got a stereo filter right here, so let's do that. So we'll take those out of the mixer, bring them into the inputs on, make sure they're right around, on the filter. And we'll go with a low pass output probably. It's multi-mode filter. Low pass into there and into there. This filter also overdrives a fair bit. Which is nice. Let's modulate the filter a bit as well. Don't need to attenuate this one. So reach, no. I don't need to attenuate this one because we've got an attenuator on the module for this. So I've got another little slow random thing happening here. I guess what we need to do now is add a bunch of reverb to it. So what I will do is I'll once again just unplug this from the mixer and I'll just mult these out. Put some buffered mults here and here. I'll bring those back into my mixer on one of the mults. Nope, not going to reach. Got one there. And one here. And I'm going to use MFX for the reverb, and I know it doesn't like a hot signal, so I will take the other mults and put it into the atten first, because otherwise it will just clip immediately. I know what MFX is like. Cool. And bring that onto one side and onto the other, and then we can take the outputs. Mix on 100% wax, I just want to use it as a send, and bring that into the mixer. There's my reverb. Isn't that glorious? And probably explains why these features weren't on the original one, because I don't want to tot up how much money's worth of modules that was, but it's more than the original £70 on the desktop version. What an expensive hobby this is. Anyway, if you like the sound of this, Crow's Electromusic on their website, you can buy it direct, and they list a set of international distributors. I think Juno and Signal Sound in the UK. If you enjoyed the video, as always, a little like and subscribe is massively appreciated.